So this section is about personalities, and I'm sure everybody has some idea about your personality, other people's personalities, and how different we all are. I mean, can you imagine if we were all the same? The world would be a very, very boring place. And our personalities are generally about how we express ourselves in the world. So expression comes down to what we wear, the way we talk, our body art, our jewelry, everything basically. It's just we show people what we like and what we don't like. So our personalities can be very colorful, they can be very bland, but we all have these different personalities. Now, people have always been put into four different styles of personalities, and this started like ages ago, 400 BC. I mean, Hippocrates already, or Hippocrates, the way, whatever way you pronounce it, came up with this way of putting people not into boxes, but into groups. And they were saying there were four dominant personality types. So there is a personality assessment that I would like you to do in here so that you can understand your personality, and also to understand the people in your life, because once again, it just gives you that insight into why your family, your friends, yourself, why you are the way you are. And in this section, you will find a table of the different personalities, because it's a lot of fun to do, and there's a lot of personality assessments that you can do. But I would just want to give you a little bit of an example. So Merrill Reed came up with something called the driver, the expressive, the amiable, and the analytical. And that's the one that I like. And it's very similar to the DISC. A lot of people understand or know about the DISC assessment, and especially if you've worked in the corporate field. Thomas International made that very popular many years ago, and that's when I studied personalities, was when I studied with Thomas International. But what it does is you have a section of questions, and it breaks down how your brain works. Now, the driver, for instance, is somebody who's very dominant, very determined, very strong-willed. They know what they want, they know where they're going, and they're sometimes very authoritative. Then you get another person who falls under what we call the expressive. Now, an expressive person is that very social person. They're very focused on relationships. They like going to social events. They like parties. They're just very expressive, very confident people generally. Now, the amiable people in this model, the drive, expressive, amiable, analytic. So amiable people are people who are very considerate. They're very peaceful. They're very solid. And they're the kind of people that you can really rely on, because they're steady. They're very supportive. And then analytical people are generally people who are those accountants, those engineers, those auditors. They're very, very good with numbers. And what you find with personalities is that a personality assessment can actually change based on your environment. So say, for instance, you working in a certain job, you can adapt your personality, and you'll find that your personality assessment comes up differently at work to how it comes up at home. And often this happens when you're in the wrong kind of job, because if you're in a job that doesn't suit your personality and you have to adapt your personality, you then see that the traits that are under stress make themselves known. So what do I mean by that? So when you have these lovely personality traits that come through, like I said, people who are peaceful and very dependable and very calm, if you put them into a job that doesn't suit their personality and they then get put under stress, you get these traits that come out where they are almost like aggressive, irritated, frustrated, because they are in a job that doesn't suit their natural brain profile, their natural personality. So these other traits start coming up. And that's why sometimes you get to know people or see people who are completely different at home to what they are like at work, because they have learned to adapt to their environment. But a happy, successful, more calm person, and somebody who knows themselves, knows what they want, knows what they like, is going to go into a job that suits their personality, which means that their stress is not going to be so high because they don't have to adapt themselves. They can be themselves. And this is what is so fascinating about doing personality assessments, is to make sure that people are doing what they love so that it comes easily to them, so it comes effortlessly to them. I remember when I was working in the corporate field, I was often called in as a problem solver when it came to human behavior in the teams. And the very first thing I always did with them was to assess their personalities. And then I would look at their jobs and then say to their bosses or the directors and say, you've got the wrong people in the wrong roles here. No wonder there's so much conflict in your team. No wonder there's so much stress going on. Because when you're forcing people to do things that don't come naturally to them, this is what makes them anxious. This is what makes them unhappy. This is what makes them be less than fulfilled. Because once you get to know yourself, once you understand yourself, it's so much easier to be in a job that suits your personality and your brain profile. And I always say this to entrepreneurs as well, that it's important that if you're going to start a job or create a business or invent something or whatever it is, make sure that it's actually an extension of you. Because when it's an extension of you, it's going to be fun. It's going to be easy. It's going to be effortless. But when you go and do something just for the sake of doing it, or you've got the wrong value or the wrong intention behind it because you feel desperate or you need to make money, chances are you're not going to be happy doing what you're doing. So that is why it's really important to understand different personalities. So when you have a look in the section and you go through the different personalities, and as I said, there is a little bit of an assessment that you can do, it gives you an idea about the traits of yourself, your own traits, and what are the traits that are conducive to your life and to your job, and also understanding your children's traits. And if you see their traits that come up that are not like them, it gives you an indication that they are stressed. There's something going on that is creating their stress. Because the traits or the weakness or limitations, like I call them in the book, will show you, give you a good idea of an underlying cause, why your child has become that way, or why your partner is that way. Why do they have this limitation, or why do they have this weakness or this trait? Why is it showing itself? And chances are because there's something else going on. They feel unsafe, they feel out of their depth, they feel stressed, they feel anxious, whatever it is. And that always relates back to their environment, whether it's at home, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in somebody else's home. If your child's traits change in a different environment, then you know that there is something that is making them feel uncomfortable and unsafe, and where they're not able to cope. So it's always a really, really good indicator when you watch them and you can see how their personality changes, you know, and especially when it changes in a different environment, then you know that that environment is the cause of that stress. So I've got a table in this section where you can start recognizing different personalities. So for instance, the dominant, the driver, you'll find that Rabbit is the driver. You know, Rabbit is the one, or in the Winnie the Pooh series, sorry, I forgot to mention that. In the Winnie the Pooh series, Rabbit's always like bouncing around. You know, he's strong-minded, he's dominant, he knows where he's going, he knows what he's doing. Tigger is the expressive, always happy and bouncing around and making friends. Pooh is the very stable one, the calmer one, the slower paced one. And then of course Eeyore is the analytical one, and you'll often find that the analytical trait, they really struggle because they tend to try and be, or they tend to veer towards perfectionism, which can make them very moody or seem very dark, and these types of people are very hard on themselves, and we really want to give them extra attention because they struggle to switch their brains off. They're always looking for solutions. It really gets to them. So yes, just to give you a bit of an idea, and then if you look into the Charlie Brown, so the driver would be Lucy, the expressive would be Snoopy, the amiable version would be Charlie Brown, and then the analytical would be Linus. And if any of you know from the Bible, so Paul would be the driver, Peter the expressive, Abraham, should I say, the amiable, and Moses would be the analytical. And then the last one I'm just going to mention here is also when we talk about fire, air, water, and earth. I quite like those. And the Enneagram, a lot of people have done the Enneagram. So the driver would be the adventurer, the achiever. The expressive would be the helper, the romantic. The amiable could be known as the peacemaker, the observer. And the analytical would be the asserter and the perfectionist. I love talking about personalities because it really gives you such a fantastic understanding of why people are the way they are. So make sure that you go through that section thoroughly and look at the strengths of the person, and the strengths are their natural ability, the natural ability of that personality, and the weaknesses or limitations are when they are under stress. Okay, so make sure that you go through that thoroughly, do the little exercise that I've included there, and then come back and move on to the next section.